And now, a stark raving mad moment.
What was that? What? I'm still...
What has just happened, a tornado has gone through downtown Salt Lake. It started just southwest of the Delta Center, ripped the roof off the Delta Center.
Oh my goodness.
It has gone into the, I don't know if it's the DoubleTree anymore, but it's the hotel that's right across. Oh my God! It's right across the street. I can't breathe!
August 11th, 1999. It's a warm and breezy day across Utah's Salt Lake Valley. The skies are cloudy, but the overcast weather doesn't prevent people from going about their normal day-to-day lives. In the heart of Salt Lake City, traffic is bustling, and the streets are buzzing with pedestrians and drivers alike. The streets are particularly busy around the Salt Palace Convention Center, which is in the process of hosting one of its largest events of the year. Thousands of attendees from around the world have flocked to the Beehive State's capital to attend the Outdoor Retailers Association convention, which is scheduled to start on August 12th. Hundreds of exhibitors are currently setting up in preparation for the next day's activity. There are so many exhibitors that 2 tents have been erected adjacent to the convention center to accommodate all of them. It is here where Jeff Hansen, Scott Ellenwood, and Darren Loyola are assisting vendors in setting up their stands. It was the 3 co-workers' 3rd year working the convention. They were audio-visual technicians who were often hired to help set up for events like this. They knew what to expect. For them, it was just like any other day on the job. It was shortly after noon when the low hum of conversation amidst those in the tent was broken by the gradual pitter-patter of rain upon the vinyl roof above. Soon the pitter-patter became louder, larger, and faster, until all that was audible in the tent was a drum-like noise radiating throughout the space as a deluge fell upon the city. If anyone in the tent happened to look outside, they'd see a dark, foreboding sky ahead. The melancholy gray clouds from earlier had turned into a black, swirling tempest, the picturesque valley looking more like Tornado Alley than the center of the Mountain West. While the sudden development of thunderstorms may have caught those on the ground by surprise, it wasn't a total shock to the forecasters at Salt Lake City's National Weather Service office. During the morning hours of August 11th, an upper-level trough carrying colder air with it began to progress through the Beehive State. Ahead of it, warm and breezy air funneled through the Salt Lake Valley, creating the windy conditions noted by many during that morning. This air was relatively moist for Utah standards, a region that is predominantly desert-like. According to the National Weather Service, by noon there was evidence that either an old frontal boundary existed, or a convergent zone had developed across the Salt Lake Valley due to breezes from the Great Salt Lake meeting up with the southerly winds that prevailed throughout the majority of the valley. This boundary acted as the ignition for the development of thunderstorms as the clock struck noon. Once these thunderstorms initiated, they exploded and matured rapidly. The most notable of the group just so happened to initiate west of Utah's largest metropolitan area, Salt Lake City. Once the storm was mature enough, it was able to take advantage of wind shear that was present within the upper atmosphere above the valley, and soon began rotating. Within roughly 30 minutes, the cell had gone from a pop-up shower to a full-blown supercell thunderstorm, the epitome of explosive development. Witnessing this development firsthand is a wedding party stationed just a few blocks away at the Salt Lake Temple. As the groom and bride take pictures against the temple walls, the cameraman turns around and spots the swirling center of a wall cloud high above the city. They're mesmerized by what they see. It's unlike anything the Salt Lake City natives have ever laid eyes on. While there is a sense of fear in their voices as they gaze up at the rotating clouds above, none of them know that they're watching the formation of a tornado. While they aren't aware of it, a dust cloud is swirling on the ground beneath that very wall cloud a few blocks away in the Poplar Grove neighborhood. Damage here is initially weak, with only F0 damage being documented, as the twister touches down and begins to move through residential Salt Lake City. However, the twister soon begins to rapidly intensify. By the time the swirling mass crosses the I-80-I-15 interchange, it has reached F2 intensity, officially making it a significant tornado. Back at the convention center, the winds are quickly picking up. The sides of the tent flap back and forth as intense gusts lash at the vinyl material. There are discussions amongst some of the attendees on whether or not they should find more substantial shelter, but most agree to stay put and wait for the storm to pass. At this point, nobody in Salt Lake City is aware of the tornado's presence. No warning for it has been issued. And even if there was, there aren't any tornado sirens to warn those outdoors of its approach. The first warning anybody gets comes from television station KUTV, who just so happens to change to a tower cam as a twister moves into downtown Salt Lake.
Look at that.
Oh my goodness.
Is that right over us
What
right
is
now?
that?
Is that smoke or something? Oh my goodness.
Is that a
look
tornado?
At that.
It's
like it's a trans.
It's a tornado.
Tornado here in Salt Lake City.
At the Delta Center, and we just saw fire erupting at at the base of it, whipping right through town. This is a camera. Where's this camera located, you guys? This is the camera on the top of the Beneficial Life Tower building in Salt Lake City. In downtown, we saw a huge burst of flames there a little while ago, and
it
apparently
obviously touched the ground.
that's a tornado that's whipping through town. We're keeping an eye on this. It just came through. We just got this shot up. Kevin, thank goodness you're here. Look at it throwing debris up into the air.
A lot of times those are strong microburst winds that are coming down and creating downdrafts. Now, it doesn't look like I can't
Panning
see
the camera now.
Yeah.
You bet. It is in some
Something
circular.
that's
Yeah.
happened because of this. It does look like it's swirling a little bit, but it could be a microburst.
It looks like a microburst. Usually when you get into a tornado pattern, which is very, very rare here in Utah, you get
my
that circular,
goodness.
another big flash off
Okay,
of that. So
Sterling Polson's apparently going to come on the air for us
Yes.
right now. Where are you, Sterling?
I'm in downtown Salt Lake. You cannot believe what has just happened. A tornado has gone through downtown Salt Lake. It started just southwest of the Delta Center. It has ripped the roof off the Delta Center.
Oh, my goodness.
It has gone into the, I don't know if it's the DoubleTree anymore, but it's the hotel that's right across. Oh, my God! It's right across the street from it. I can't breathe! The Triad Center, it has now moved. The tornado has now lifting back up in the sky, but it has gone clear across just to the east of the Triad Center,
Look at the
across
fires.
the parking lot place by the Genealogical Library, just behind the Genealogical Library. The tornado has now lifted off, but it has done some major damage here in downtown Salt Lake City. The tornado was about...
Local meteorologist Sterling Paulson communicates what he sees on the ground via telephone as he stands in a parking garage a short distance from the twister. He watches the tornado as it slams into the Delta Center, the home of the NBA's Utah Jazz. Home video taken 2 blocks away captures the scene. A massive explosion is visible as the twister strikes an adjacent substation, before the Delta Center's roof is ripped up and lofted into the air. With winds exceeding 110 miles per hour, the tornado takes aim next at the Wyndham Hotel, blowing out hundreds of windows in the high-rise structure and stripping portions of the roof off and into the sky. At this point, the tornado is only across the street from the Salt Palace Convention Center. The tents are still packed with vendors, the strengthening winds sending many nervous attendees towards the exits. By now, however, it is too late. The tornado is on top of them. Jeff Hansen, Scott Ellenwood, and Darren Loyola would look up and watch as the roof of the tent would peel off, giving them a glimpse of the towering column of swirling clouds that stood before them. They can't believe their eyes, not yet comprehending that what they're looking at is a twister. Panic erupts within the tent as attendees realize what's happening. People run every which way, screams echo through the space. Home video captures the scene as the tornado hits the tents, showing the view as the large vinyl structures collapse onto themselves amidst the winds. The trio rush out of the tent, following the panicked crowd, not quite knowing what they're running from. It's only when another attendee shouts "tornado" that it starts to register within their minds. They're being hit by a twister. As they rush towards the door, they find it unable to be opened, the twister's winds pushing it inward, keeping it closed. It's only when the wind shifts that Darren and Scott are suddenly able to burst through the door, running for safety. But Jeff isn't able to make it out in time, soon finding himself trapped in the tent as his two coworkers run forward, unaware that they've left their colleague behind as the tornado begins to overtake the structure. Darren and Scott continue to run for sturdier shelter, but they can't outrun the twister. Every time they look back, it's as if it's getting closer and closer, a massive wall of black dust and clouds swirling around them and hurling debris every which way. Behind them, as he begins to be overtaken by the outer edges of the tornado, Jeff finally manages to burst through the tent doors. He'd look up in the sky, describing what he saw as he stared into the heart of the tornado, as if it was like looking down inside of a blender. He doesn't waste much time, though, quickly focusing back on the situation at hand, sprinting full speed towards his van, which is parked relatively nearby. To get there, he runs through a maze of large shipping crates. Just before he reaches his car, one of the crates comes crashing down on top of him. Pain radiates through his body, but he fights against the weight of the crate and manages to stand up and take the last few steps to his vehicle, crawling inside as pieces of buildings, trees, and everything else pummel the sides of the van. As he sits in the front seat, Jeff finds himself getting lightheaded. His breathing quickens, and he lies down in the back of the vehicle, unable to catch his breath. He looks out the window, spying Scott and Darren running just a few yards away. Darren and Scott fail to spot the van and continue running straight forward. They cross a busy street, weaving in between panicked cars on the road as dust obscures their vision. With no time left, they both spot a tree that several people are already gripping onto for safety. They do the same, managing to find the last available spots left on the tree, holding on to it for dear life. The core of the tornado finally passes over them, the group subjected to winds well over 110 miles per hour, with wind, rocks, wood, stone, and everything else flying all about. All they can do is pray to live or wait to die. A short distance away, a motorist captures the twister from his car as it tears through the center of Salt Lake City, people visibly kneeling on the ground adjacent to the road, hanging on as the winds rage about. The twister lifts them up off the ground, the two men hanging onto the tree with all their might, until finally it stops. The tornado passes over them. Back at the Salt Lake Temple, the wedding party watches on as a defined funnel becomes visible ever so slightly in the distance. At first, they're uncertain of what it is, just like Darren and Scott earlier, not willing to accept that they're staring at a tornado. But soon, the debris becomes visible, and the wind picks up. With the doors of the temple locked, they have no choice but to huddle together against the temple walls as the tornado bears down on them. After narrowly missing the wedding party, the twister continues on to the east, tearing down cranes at a construction site on Temple Square, which suffers a direct hit. The tornado continues on to the east, maintaining F2 intensity as it narrowly misses the Utah State Capitol building. While several trees on the property are downed, the building itself is spared. The nearby Memory Grove Park suffers a direct hit, where every tree, all of which were planted by mourning mothers commemorating the losses of their sons in World War I, is downed or snapped. It reaches its peak width as it enters the avenues, an affluent residential community just beyond the skyscrapers and high-rises of downtown. Here, dozens of houses have their roofs torn off, some losing exterior walls. It's only as the tornado leaves populated areas and enters the Wasatch Range that it finally lifts, putting an end to a roughly 4-mile-long reign of terror.
Up, and there was just a whole bunch of people standing there, and people like, a tornado's coming, and right there, I looked up and I seen it coming. I just took off running.
I was in this building right here, and it looked like a fire was coming that way. I went to look at it, and then I noticed it was a tornado, and I tried to move and get out in my truck. I just ducked down in my truck. It came by and knocked all the windows out.
But it was very wicked. It was lifting cars up.
Certainly looks like it could have been a tornado, but it was something I've never seen before.
Police officer, I just need to know what you're doing. It's in my car. Get it out of here. In the aftermath of the tornado of '99, chaos and confusion.
I want everybody this way. Everybody this way.
And I saw it just form and the funnel come all the way down and touch the ground, and then I got on my radio and started screaming for my crew and to get everybody out.
This is mine.
You just at the stoplight?
No, I was here. We seen it coming. I stopped it. I threw my daughter across the street. Across my seat, covered her. And some guy went down here. We watched that.
For the survivors, powerful emotions, pain, fear, and disbelief.
We had a tornado. The wind came up real fast, and you don't expect tornadoes here. I just thought it was a real strong windstorm, and then at some point, stuff started flying around, and I didn't have time to get inside. I kind of dove in the corner back here.
Back in downtown Salt Lake, survivors begin to dust themselves off and walk around. Glass is strewn everywhere. Debris litters the streets. The 2 tents that were housing the vendors are a complete loss, both now just a pile of rubble. Darren and Scott are among the survivors who walk around and survey the devastation. The damage was unlike anything the city had ever seen, from a phenomena the region almost never saw. It was during this stage of observation that they recalled their colleague, Jeff Hansen. Quickly, they rushed back towards the tents, searching for him amidst the destruction. It isn't long before they spot his van. They rush to it, finding Jeff inside, struggling to breathe. Together, they help Jeff up, and take him to an ambulance, where he is taken to a hospital, and ultimately recovers. He suffers 3 broken ribs and a punctured lung, but he ultimately makes a total recovery. Around them in the streets of Salt Lake was chaos, as people walked around, observing the damage and destruction. Jeff, Scott, and Darren were among the lucky ones impacted by the twister. Alan Crandy, 38 years old, was setting up in the same tent they had been in just a few minutes prior. Amidst the chaos, he was unable to escape the tornado's winds, and ultimately lost his life in the storm. Alan was a U.S. Army veteran who resided in Las Vegas, Nevada with his wife and 3 children. Alan and his wife of 13 years, Jan Crandy, had a daughter diagnosed with autism. Together, they co-founded the Las Vegas chapter of the nonprofit organization Families for Effective Autism Treatment. Through their work with the organization, they became a strong voice locally in the fight to treat children with autism, even going as far as to advocate for the passage of a law preventing the usage of inappropriate punishments for autistic children, which was ultimately passed in 1998. He is remembered by his family as a loving father, who is dedicated to helping his country and his community. Patt Schmidt was also working as a vendor with her husband, Larry. Larry was able to save Pat from the rubble with the assistance of neighboring bystanders. She was pinned beneath heavy debris and was unconscious, but she did have a pulse. First responders on the scene rushed to her and held her hand as they waited for an ambulance to arrive. Pat was rushed to the University of Utah hospital, where it was determined that she had suffered extensive brain damage as a result of her injuries. Pat laid in the hospital bed for 45 days in a coma, before finally regaining her consciousness. Pat would undergo months of rehabilitation after waking up. She had to relearn basic skills like tying her shoes and writing. Her speech was significantly altered, but her comprehension, personality, and liveliness remained intact. In the years following, she'd become an avid outdoorswoman, spending ample time skiing and running, showing just how strong the human spirit can be. In total, over 100 people were injured in the twister, and over $170 million in damage was done. Left behind was a city rattled. Nobody in Salt Lake City ever thought they'd have to worry about a tornado in their own backyard. It was a wake-up call for many, and a reminder that even in the Mountain West, tornadoes are possible. The city didn't let the disaster inhibit it from moving forward, however. While those who were injured and lost their lives in the storm were remembered and memorialized, the residents of Salt Lake quickly got to work picking up the pieces of their tattered homeland. The Outdoor Retailers Association convention went on as planned, albeit one day later than initially scheduled. The roofs, windows, and trees damaged by the storm were soon replaced, and within a year much of the Twister's path had returned to normal. By the time the 2002 Winter Olympics came around, it was largely impossible for anyone to tell that a tornado had ever torn through downtown Salt Lake City. The community had recovered excellently. To symbolize this growth, Patt Schmidt, not even 3 years into her rehab, was invited to run a leg of the Olympic torch relay, showing not just her own growth, but the rapid recovery of a community rattled by something they thought was impossible. While a whole new generation of Salt Lake residents have been born and moved into the city, and many of them have no recollection of the tornado, those who lived through the storm remember it perfectly. While the risk for tornadoes remains low in the region, and a significant twister on the level of the 1999 tornado has yet to impact the area again, many still remain on alert when the threat of strong storms is present within the Salt Lake Valley. For those that were there on that August day, one thing is remembered by all of them: the way the community came together after the disaster. Over $1.5 million was raised in the months following the twister to pay for the replanting of trees within Memory Grove Park. Every street impacted was occupied for days by selfless volunteers willing to give a helping hand to their neighbors, a helping hand that helped in the area's speedy recovery. To this day, the storm remains a testament to unity in the face of a disaster, and to how tornadoes, even strong tornadoes, are possible in every part of the world. Whether or not another tornado of this magnitude will impact Salt Lake in the future is uncertain, but the people of Salt Lake City will be more prepared with the memory of the 1999 twister in their minds, the unforgettable impact of the Beehive State's most devastating tornado. This has been Overcast. Thank you for watching.